Fear is a very powerful emotion. As humans, when we feel emotions, we tend to base our actions off of those emotions. So if we feel an emotion like fear, it could cause us to act off that fear. The emotion of fear causes us to act off that fear. And that could be in a good way or in a bad way, because sometimes fear is necessary. Like if you're doing something that could potentially kill you, of course you're going to feel fearful, and that's just your body's natural mechanism of trying to protect you. But sometimes this is why being aware of yourself is key, because sometimes that fear is stopping us from achieving something greater.
What's wrong? You've reached the southwest window. Why are you hesitating?
It's fine, I've just never been this high before.
And getting to a place more successful than where we currently are. And in that case, if you let fear dictate your decisions, it could be pretty detrimental to your success, also to your mental health, and to just you, especially as a man. If you let fear dictate your actions most of the time, most likely you're not going to end up in the place where you want to be, or even the place where you need to be. So how I like to define fear, I always say fear is the awareness of the unknown. For example, if I'm scared to pick up this shirt, I'm scared because I'm unaware what's going to happen if I pick up this shirt. So that's why it's the awareness of the unknown. I know I can pick up this shirt, so I'm aware of that. And the unknown part is I don't know what's going to happen once I pick up this shirt. We tend to try to stick to what's familiar to us because it feels safe and we feel comfortable. And that's just how we are as humans naturally. But once I started to learn how to challenge this kind of natural mechanism in my brain, it really started to change the way I look at things, and it really started to change the way I go about life. Because now I started to develop it's like a voice that tells you to challenge your fear. Like the more you do it, the more it pops up when you need it. Because I've been through situations where I had fear and I didn't face it, and it led to nothing good. But I also had situations where I had fear and I did face it, and it absolutely changed my life. Like I wouldn't be the person that I am if I didn't take those actions. So with this video, I just want to propose a mindset to young men to just have them look at fear in a different light. Have them look at fear as something that could potentially change their lives to make them successful. When I was younger, and I was naturally always like athletic, and I was always like fast, and I was always pretty strong for how small I was. So I naturally gravitated towards sports. So, but once I started to play sports, when I first started, like when I was really young, I remember like this is probably like one of my earliest memories. Like it was scary because it was something new. And like when I first started playing football, I used to get real, like I was a sensitive kid. So I used to get real emotional about, like when people would yell and like coaches would yell, and like I would take it personal because I didn't know that's how sports were. So I would really get upset like most of the time. And even when I started to grow up and I became older and I joined high school sports, um, it was still joining a new sport or doing something new. It was still a scary feeling because you don't know how good you're gonna be. You don't really know the outcome. So it's kind of it's definitely a scary feeling. But once I put myself out there, I started to meet new people. I started to accomplish good things. I started to become a better athlete, a better person. Like I started to do things I wouldn't normally do. Like in high school, if I didn't play sports, I feel like I wouldn't even have a chance of, being successful or anything like that, just because it taught me so much. Not even just the sport itself, the people that I met within the sports, the situations that we had, and all the interactions and all the things that I've been through because of the sports, it made me a completely different person. The fact that I had to face that fear, it forced me to rise up and face new challenges within. Once I faced that fear of playing the sport and I'm playing the sport, now there's new challenges within that sport that I now have to face and overcome and become a better person. Not just challenges with the specific sport, but with people, with everything. So the fact that I really didn't give myself an option, like it was either like I kind of had to play sports, like, but the fact that I didn't really give myself an option, I was just like, I have to face this fear no matter what the outcome is, then that benefited me greatly in the long run. It showed me that on the other side of fear is not always something bad. It's often really rarely something bad. On the other side of what you fear is who you're meant to be. What you fear, that's the challenge you're supposed to overcome. And that challenge, what that challenge makes you overcome, on the other side of that is who you're supposed to be. So when you think about it, your fear, in your fear is who you're supposed to be. So like another example I could give, while I was in high school, which was only like 2 years ago, um, I got really into like spirituality. I was on like semen retention for like shit, probably months, like months to a year. I was on semen retention. I went vegan for like a year. For like 2 years, I was vegan. Like meditating for like hours a day, like in the sun. Like I was legit like one of those people, like just spiritual as fuck. But so the reason why I got into that, it was actually by accident. Like I feel like another good thing about fear too is that once you face it, it sort of makes you meet your fate. Like it helps you meet your fate. So, for example, like when I was talking about the spirituality, like I didn't get into it on purpose. Originally, I didn't know nothing about spirituality. I didn't give a fuck about anything about that. So the reason why I got into it was I was convinced like there was like something like a health problem with me or something like that. I don't know if it was the way I was eating or something, but I was just convinced. So I was doing all this research on like natural like medicine and stuff like that and like natural like healing. I originally came across like these black people. They were preaching about how you have to eat natural foods and you shouldn't be eating all this meat and processed shit. And that's true, you really shouldn't. So I came across that first, and that was interesting to me. So I started doing more research on it, and then eventually I started like adapting it into my life. And then that led me to meditation, and that meditation led me to all these spiritual people and all these spiritual gurus. I was off my phone, off social media. I might as well just not even have a phone. I wasn't texting anybody, I wasn't calling anybody, I wasn't on social media, I wasn't on shit. Like I deleted my social media. I went on semen retention, which is very beneficial, but I'll go about that in another video. But it literally changed my whole life just because of that initial fear that I had of that health scare. I decided to take that responsibility into my own hands. It forced me to wake up and to do some research on my own and to try to figure out, how I could become healthier. So that initial fear of whatever was happening at that time, it forced me to try to find some natural solutions and some natural things, which then led me to all this spiritual. I went down a rabbit hole. Like I was like a monk for like a year. That changed my life because now I have such a like spiritual and such an energy awareness to things. Like that spiritual time in my life, it benefited me so greatly because it gave me like this ability. I learned a new skill. It's almost like a superpower now. That's because I had to deal with the fear. I had to face a fear. And like I could go on and on about, small situations, everyday situations where fear is trying to hold you back. But You have to be the one to become aware of that. Be aware of when it's holding you back. How you know when it's holding you back is if you want to do something. If you want to do something, like deep down, you know you want to do something, but the fear is holding you back. That's how you know you should face that fear and something greater will come out on the other side. Like with the sports example again, I knew that I wanted to play sports. Like sports looked fun. I know I wanted to play it, but the fear of the unknown was holding me back. So don't let that fear of the unknown hold you back. And it doesn't make any sense to become a victim to your fear because let's say you really want to do something, right? You really want to play a sport, you really want to try something new, you really want to do something. But there's fear stopping you. The fear is like this monster at the gate. And then behind the gate is all the success, the think of the best possible version of yourself. That's behind the gate. But the monster who's guarding the gate is fear. And in order to get through the gate, you have to destroy that monster. You have to face that fear. So think about it. If you don't, like you're approaching your best possible self. You're approaching what you want to do. Like, that's your success. You're approaching that and then you see a challenge in front of the gate and you're like, "Oh shit, well, I didn't expect there to be a challenge, so like that's it." Like you just give up and you don't pursue it anymore. Think about how that affects you on like a spiritual level, on an everything level. Think about how that affects you. Think about how that's gonna affect your kids. Think about how that's gonna affect your future family. How that's gonna affect everything in your life. If you know you're capable of something and you know you want to do something, but there's an obstacle standing in your way, that obstacle is there for a reason because not everybody's meant to be in that place where you're going. You have to face that obstacle to overcome it. If you don't face that obstacle, but you still know you want to do something, you're gonna it only brings more pain and more suffering and more hurt. Because I'd rather live with the pain of fighting this monster to be the most successful version of myself rather than live with the pain of knowing that I can be more successful, but I don't want to face this monster. Like most of the times, once you face the monster, it's not that strong. You defeat it after a while. The more you do something, the more you expose yourself to what you're scared of, the less scary it's gonna be. Like think about the first time you ever did anything. Obviously it's not gonna be, you're not gonna be so happy to do it because you've never done it before. You're gonna be have some level of fear. But if you could get into the basically make it a habit of knowing what you want to do and being aware of the fear that comes with doing what you want to do because you know that as long as you want something and as long as you're not scared of the fear that's guarding you from what you want, then you're good. That's that.